From Wish TV and the All Indiana Podcast Network, this is the News 8 Daily 8 Podcast with Wish TV's Kylie Conway. A Wish TV News 8 update.
Hi, this is Kylie Conway, and this is your News 8 Daily 8 for Thursday, June 30th. The end to June, going to have return of 90-degree weather. It's going to lead to some more uncomfortable temps this afternoon, but it's really dry out there, and we're not feeling that sticky humidity, so that's a little bit of good news. Going to have plenty of sunshine for the day as well. It has been a violent 24 hours in Indianapolis. The most recent of several shootings happened early this morning on the far west side. A person is dead. This one happened around 6 at the Waterfront Point apartment homes just northwest of 465 I-74. Our crew at the scene talked to officers who've only described it so far as a death investigation, but not a homicide. As far as the other shootings, IMPD is trying to figure out if 2 of them are connected, one of them fatal. Officers say they found a man shot to death on Harlan Street just before 3 this morning. A few minutes later, police responded to a man shot nearby on Prospect Street. Police say the victim is stable at the hospital. IMPD hasn't released any other information, just that the shootings could be related.
This is somewhat of a quiet area, and so something like this is certainly unprecedented in this particular area.
And officers responded to 5 people shot within 90 minutes yesterday evening, then another shooting late last night. It all started just before 5 p.m. on Post Road near 30th Street. According to officers, that person is expected to be okay. Then just after 6 p.m., officers say they found a woman shot at Hostaway in Canby. Police say she died at the scene. Officers also say they're speaking to a person of interest there. Then 10 minutes later, police responded to a triple shooting on Guyon Road on the west side. Police say they found one person in critical condition inside a vehicle. Officers found the other 2 victims outside the vehicle. They're now serious but stable at the hospital. IMPD says they also found a person shot on Manor Court around 10:45 last night. That person was awake and breathing. IMPD has not released suspect information in any of these shootings. And we are getting a wide range of reaction to a judge's decision to let a new state bail law go forward. Lawmakers passed it to restrict efforts of groups like the Bail Project, which posts bonds for people who could otherwise not afford it. Over the last year, police say several people who were bailed out went on to commit new crimes. A judge has rejected a request from the ACLU to block the law. News 8 spoke to 10-Point Coalition leader Reverend Charles Harrison. He supports the work of organizations like the Bail Project, but hopes the restrictions will help too.
Certainly, I hope that with this law that it helps prevent violent offenders being released back out on the streets and committing more violent acts.
The Bail Project says it has helped about 1,000 people post bond in Marion and Lake counties. The bill's sponsor, Representative Peggy Mayfield of Martinsville, tells News 8 she's pleased with the judge's decision. The ACLU says it will keep fighting it in court. Beginning tomorrow, legal gun owners will not need to have a permit to carry a gun in public. IMPD Chief Randall Taylor says its officers get trained on new laws each year. He tells IT-Mate that without a state permit system in place, officers are now preparing for a surge of firearms in public.
I think that people will think it's just a free-for-all, that anyone can carry, and, there's not going to be a consequence to that. And that's just not the case. There's still 15 categories that would preclude you from being able to carry a weapon.
Examples of those categories are, for instance, people who've been charged with domestic violence or stalking. But Chief Taylor says those charges are not always available from the courts at a moment's notice and would require some research. He says the silver lining to the law is the added penalties for violators. The special legislative session set to start next week will now wait until the end of July. Republican leaders say they need more time to finalize tougher anti-abortion laws. They're pushing back the session to July 25th. The session was originally scheduled so that lawmakers could consider an inflation-fighting plan from the governor, but the Supreme Court ruling overturning Roe v. Wade now has abortion on the agenda. GOP leaders are not giving any specifics yet about what they want in the new rules. By law, the session could last as long as 40 days.
The care that we provide and the services that we offer the need for that is going to just skyrocket.
Crisis pregnancy centers are ready to expand services, predicting a rush of women in need of help. The Great Lakes Gabriel Project is a Christian-based network of church volunteers. They say they're prepared to offer free medical aid, childcare, transportation, and financial assistance. The organization says it has supported thousands of women and wants women to know it supports them all.
We pray and hope that the women who come to us will choose life for their children, but we don't pressure the women. It is completely their decision.
The O'Connor House in Carmel says its mission is to help single, pregnant, homeless women. Workers there say women in need can stay at the house for up to 18 months. The Department of Health and Human Services issues new guidance in its post-Roe v. Wade patient privacy policy. HIPAA allows for protected health information to be shared with law enforcement without patient consent. It now includes that can only happen under narrow circumstances. The guidance says the information can only be shared when expressly required by another law, when the request is made through such legal processes as a court order or court-ordered warrant, and if the disclosure is necessary to prevent a threat to health or safety. And today, the first black woman confirmed for the Supreme Court will take her place on the bench. Ketanji Brown Jackson will be sworn in at noon. That's exactly when Stephen Breyer said his retirement would take effect. Breyer served on the court for nearly 28 years. The court will issue its final opinions of the term before he steps down. Brace for a busy 4th of July weekend. If you're headed out, AAA predicts 42 million Americans will drive 50 miles or more, with today and tomorrow being the busiest on the roads. If you head out today, AAA says to avoid going between 2 in the afternoon and 8 in the evening. The suggestion was to leave before 7 this morning or just wait until later tonight. So if you're just hearing this and you haven't left yet, you better wait till later tonight. If you're headed out tomorrow, AAA says the worst times are between noon and 9. The best times before 10 in the morning or after 9 at night. The airports fill up tomorrow as well. AAA projects more than 3.5 million people will fly somewhere over the holiday weekend. Experts from the travel site Scott's Cheap Flights say that it's a sign of a busy and chaotic summer travel season.
There are fewer planes in the sky. Security lines are stretched both at home and abroad, and folks are really struggling to serve everyone equally.
Wherever you go, or if you stay home, in case you missed it, the American Farm Bureau Federation says a cookout is going to cost you more too, 17% more, in fact. And if you ride the bus in Indianapolis, July 4th may shake up your schedule. Indigo says all routes will run on a Sunday schedule during Monday's holiday. Most routes run on an hour or more behind the usual weekday schedule. Indigo's Care Center desk at the Downtown Transit Center will be closed for the holiday. And each Thursday, we talk Indiana business headlines with Inside Indiana Business host Gary Dick. Here's this morning's conversation.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk to Ursal Ozdemir, the owner of the Indy 11, about, of course, it was announced a week ago, the big news, a new soccer stadium in downtown Indianapolis, but more than a stadium, there will be retail, residential, a whole list of developments that will be pieces of that overall project. Could total $1 billion ultimately. So we're going to get into what that can mean, what that will mean for that area of downtown Indianapolis, kind of that near west side. Transformational is a word that's used a lot, especially in relation to White River State Park and Elanco and some of the other developments around there. So we will talk about that and also when they're going to get started and when we might see some action.
All good questions to have answered, and we'll be looking forward to that. You're spotlighting Western Indiana's ambitions.
Right. West Central Indiana, these ready grants that the state announced late in December. $500 million going to regions around the state. We're going to focus in on West Central Indiana, the Wabash Valley, if you will. Historic places like Billy Creek Village. That's in Park County. Covered Bridge Festival. A lot of people go to that from this area as well. But the money funneling into the West Central Indiana region will go for millions of dollars in improvements there. What will that mean, not only for that historic site, but what will it mean for tourism dollars coming into West Central Indiana? We'll take a look at that.
All right, so what else is coming up Sunday?
Well, again, we're going to talk to the owner of the Indy 11 about what's on tap for that big development. Hendricks Regional Hancock Health joining forces with the Mayo Clinic, coming in with a presence here in Indiana, and the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership, new leadership, David Johnson stepping down after about a decade leading that organization. We will talk to him about progress and also what's next for him.
How about the IBJ this
Well,
week?
let's take a look at the IBJ. They will be looking at the stock market impact. Certainly, the stock market has faced its challenges, talk of a possible recession. Also, the FTC investigation into pharmacy benefit managers. Boone County, a justice center with expansion plans, and the history of Diamond Chain. We talk about the big Indy 11 project, the Diamond Chain project. Look at the history there as well.
All right, Gary, thank you as
You bet.
always. The Biden administration is getting ready to fight COVID-19 this fall. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says it'll buy 105 million doses of Pfizer's vaccine. That includes both adult and child shots. HHS expects delivery in early fall. That's when health experts fear COVID-19 cases will spike again. And a federal grand jury in Evansville charged 12 people for their roles in a drug ring. The Department of Justice says federal agents seized 35 pounds of meth, 45 grams of cocaine, and 4 guns intended for distribution in southern Indiana. The DOJ says John Byers of Bowling Green, Kentucky, led the drug ring. It says he supplied the 10 people from Evansville and 1 person from Texas with the drugs. The House committee investigating the January 6th insurrection now wants to hear from Pat Cipollone. He's a former White House counsel who the panel says repeatedly warned former President Trump against efforts to challenge the election. The panel issued a subpoena to Cipollone yesterday. He's already spoken with committee members behind closed doors. He was present for key meetings in the weeks after the election when Trump and his allies plotted ways to overturn the election. Former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson testified this week that Cipollone told Trump's chief of staff Mark Meadows that if nothing was done on January 6th, blood would be on Meadows' hands. A Republican congresswoman is praising Hutchinson and other women who have testified in front of the committee. Representative Liz Cheney says they're showing others what it means to be a patriot.
And I want to speak to every young girl watching tonight. The power is yours, and so is the responsibility. In our great nation, one individual can make all the difference, and each individual must try. There are no bystanders in a constitutional republic.
Cheney also challenged the current leaders of the Republican Party. She says they must decide whether to be loyal to the Constitution or to former President Trump. A former January 6th committee investigator wants to join Congress. John Wood launched his campaign for Senate in Missouri. Wood is running as an independent, but says he's a conservative and lifelong Republican. He says there needs to be a common-sense alternative to the people already running for senator in Missouri. The U.S. is bolstering its military presence in Europe in response to the war in Ukraine. The move includes establishing a permanent military headquarters in Poland, maintaining a rotation of 3,000 troops in Romania, and sending 2 more fighter jet squadrons to the United Kingdom. President Biden made the announcement at a NATO summit in Madrid yesterday.
We're going to make sure that NATO is ready to meet threats from all directions across every domain, land, air, and the sea.
At the meeting, NATO officially extended invitations yesterday to Finland and Sweden to join the alliance. They applied for membership in May, spurred by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin says he is unbothered by the move, but says the NATO expansion would create tensions. And we now know the names of the 4 people killed in Monday's Amtrak train crash and derailment in Missouri. The State Highway Patrol says the train crashed into a dump truck, killing the driver, 54-year-old Bill Barton II. 8 of the train's cars and 2 locomotives left the track. 3 passengers died. 82-year-old Ben Fawn, Rochelle Cook, who was 58, and 56-year-old Kim Holzapfel. As I've reported, the crash happened at the intersection that doesn't have crossing arms or lights. The National Transportation Safety Board is now looking into whether drivers could even see approaching trains.
It's important that we take this time to honor those who lost their lives and the serious injuries and make some change, make some improvements. We know there need to be some improvements.
The agency says the train was moving at just under the 90-per-hour speed limit when the crash happened. Its horn started blowing about a quarter mile before the crossing. And the city of New Haven released video of the moment a prison van suddenly stopped, throwing an inmate or someone being transferred to a correction facility, Randy Cox, head first into the front of the van. He was handcuffed, but not in a seatbelt or other restraint. It happened earlier this month. The city's mayor says the officer driving suddenly stopped to avoid a crash. That's when it threw Cox into the front of the van in the cab there. Authorities say Cox suffered a serious injury to his neck and spine and is now paralyzed from the chest down, according to family. Cox's attorney accuses the officers of mocking Cox's pleas for help. The van's driver and 4 other officers are on administrative leave. The FCC is taking aim at TikTok over user privacy. The agency is asking Google and Apple to remove the popular social media platform from its app stores. The concern has grown on a report from BuzzFeed accusing TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, of accessing user data. Neither Google nor Apple are commenting on the request yet. The companies would have to voluntarily comply with the request since the FCC doesn't have jurisdiction over internet-based services. And finally, the Indianapolis Humane Society is holding a kitten adoption event Saturday. It's from noon to 4 at the shelter near 79th and Michigan Road. All are spayed or neutered, microchipped, and up-to-date on vaccines. Adoption fees for 1 kitten are $35 or $50 for 2. Indy Humane is only taking cash or Venmo, so keep that in mind. This has been your News 8 Daily 8 for Wish TV. I'm Kylie Conway, online at wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook when you search Wish TV.
This is the News 8 Daily 8 podcast with Wish TV's Kylie Conway. A Wish TV News 8 update on demand. For even more, on demand and on the go. Connect with Wish TV on Facebook at wishtv.com and on the free Wish TV mobile app. Thank you for listening. And be sure to like, subscribe, and follow this podcast for updates every weekday morning on the All Indiana Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcast.